Dhiraj, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Thanks, Ashu. All great.
Yeah,
Scaling.
Dhiraj, I have been particularly looking forward to this discussion, right? This conversation particularly is happening in a unique partnership between Asia Tech Journal and Tyke. Tyke is an investing platform, which is democratizing investing in many ways. It's bringing users closer to the product, right? I think, and there is no better way of financing than to have, believers, users coming in and contributing to your aspiration and growth, for the founder. It's unique in many ways, right? Asia Tech Journal is a media organization, which talks of the intersection of technology and business. And we uniquely sort of come together, right? The idea is to understand businesses at a deeper level. The idea is to bring out some very critical parameters, and facets that an organization has to deal with, when you're kind of scaling, and eventually, bring in that right kind of a confidence, right? Bring in right questions, which give the confidence to these investors to go out and invest, right? And that's the whole perspective behind this conversation. It's good to have you, Dhiraj, with us. It's good to have Lighthouse with us today. You're already listed on the platform. I am particularly excited about this conversation, Dhiraj, largely because risk management is something that we've continued to talk of, right? I come from a financial services background, a financial markets background. We continue to talk about risk management, right? We used to continue to assess a certain event in a financial model, right? Unfortunately, organizations never had any mechanics whatsoever to deal with some real world situations. Last two and a half years have, they've put a very different kind of a, it's brought in a very different kind of a perspective in front of us, right? Business continuity became a huge sort of a challenge for most businesses. Everybody came to a standstill. Nobody was necessarily sure in terms of, what's where, how do they react to a certain situation. Human resource became a problem, inventory became a problem, production became a problem. All of that got disrupted, right? And I think easily we can say that, it took organizations 6 to 8 months to really normalize a lot of things, right? And this is still not gone away, right? COVID is something that we're still dealing with. There are many other such viruses that have become and possibly will become pertinent. I think there's global voice, which is around that. But the good part is it's brought in certain seriousness, right? It's brought in a seriousness which is towards efficiency. Organizations will have to empower themselves with right kind of systems, right? And Lighthouse is essentially doing that. Thus, this becomes a very exciting and interesting conversation on many levels. But before I do that, because I'd love you to introduce yourself to us and your team at Lighthouse, and then we dive into the conversation around risk management. What is it that you're solving for? How does it goes and sits in organization? And pretty much all of that, right? And possibly a global aspiration that you have towards the end of it, right? Over to you, Dhiraj.
Thanks, Ashu. So I'm Dhiraj. I'm co-founder and CEO with Drone, and we also have Prateek with us, who is co-founder and CTO. So we have a very good and experienced team out here, which is building this product. And what we are solving for is fear and uncertainty pertaining to day-to-day safety and business continuity for the companies. Right. Such a product was never thought of. We all do a lot of pestle analysis, which has political, economic, social, etc. But it's right. Only at the beginning of the project. And as company grows, scales, I think it is only the financial risk management which we all end up doing. Right. Nobody looks at these political, economic, social. So if you're traveling to Aurangabad and you get to know that there is a rally of Raj Thakre, would you want to travel on the same day, or would you want to move your day here and there? Right. If you have a, if you're traveling, if you're landing in Kolkata and suppose it's a day when you have a strike, do you want to have that information a day in advance? Right. If there is a riot somewhere, what is the kind of disruption that companies like Unilever or Procter and Gamble would have? How many distributors of theirs got impacted? What is the impact on the human life because of riots and political rallies and protests? We have seen a year-long protest in India, like a farmers' protest, and the kind of logistics time that it increased for most of the companies was to the tune of 9 hours sometimes. So what we are talking about here is there are so many extraneous factors which impact your business in various ways. And that's what we do. We give you a clear analysis of your infra at risk. That means your offices. We're not talking about cyber security here. We're talking about infra, real physical infra. What is your infra at risk? What is your human at risk? And what are your revenues at risk? And how are you going to mitigate them? What is the workflow? We take data from multiple channels and we feed this information to you. We also give you emergency services. Like you press the SOS button and you immediately get an ambulance. You immediately get a on-road assistance. So many data points that we give you. So we're essentially solving for real information intensity, number one. And number two, what can you do to mitigate that risk ASAP? And like you said just a few minutes back, there's no better time than now, because everybody is now sensitized towards safety. and post-pandemic particularly, and we've understood what does this mean and how can it impact our business in a big way.
Absolutely, Neeraj, fantastic, right? A great start. I think for everybody who's out there with us, Neeraj, I'd love you to break it down, right? In terms of how does it go on and sits with an organization. Now, a lot of risk management, for example, there is a lot of conversation which has happened around risk management, right? A lot of consulting companies continue to be, this continues to be a huge focus area, for a lot of consulting companies, right? As a practice area. Now, usually when you talk of risk, right? It's more responsive in many ways, right? What you're talking about is more predictive in nature, and then there are risks that are systemic in nature, and then of course there are aberrations that continue to exist, right? And I think what you possibly talking about is a 360-degree alignment of sorts, which helps an organization understand these visible and invisible risks, right? And possibly the response system, in an event of exigency or emergency, right, is essentially what you're talking about. I'd love to understand for a typical organization, more a case study, how does this goes on and sits within that organization, right? If you could, pick up one organization that you're already working with, how you've dissected it for them, how you place these mechanics within the organization, I think would be a great starting point.
I think, but so very, very pertinent point there, which you just raised. Just think of it. We were presenting to one of the largest FMCG in India,
sure.
And I won't name it now, but
sure.
because of confidentiality clause and various things. So we're working with one of the largest FMCG firm, and it started out with HR, and they said, hey, we are looking at women's safety and employee safety, and SOS driven. Can you send ambulances? Can you send this, etc., etc.
Right.
And we were presenting them with our command center, 24 by command center, what are the capabilities, etc. And then we said, by the way, we have so much of information which can tell you that what is the level of risk that you have at your revenue, infra, etc., etc. And we said, hey, just wait for 1 second. Can I get my logistics guy also in this call? Conversation started with the human resource person, and then the logistics guy jumps into the call, and then the conversation unfolds, and this guy says, hey, I love this product. So many trucks of mine were crossing Kerala and there were flash floods, and we were wondering how to reroute them, and etc., etc. And and then suddenly the other gentleman says, hey, I need to add my infra admin as well here. I think this is also relevant for an infra admin. And then infra admin comes into the call and he says, hey, this is really good, because I would like to know how many of my places are in a containment zone at any given point in time. How many of my places are at a risk because of a riot when there is something of this sort happens, or maybe into a political rally. How many of my branches are shutting, etc., etc. And then comes and joins the security officer on the call. And finally, there were 10 people on the call from this FMCG firm, and they said, hey, there's a use case for me. There's a use case for me. I want this, etc. So I think this product has got use case across the section, across every department that runs in every large organization and small organization. And so far, only large organizations were kind of using these kind of products because of the price point, sheer price point. The competition in Western world is charging you $1 million for such kind of product. We are coming out with a product which is good for a small company, a medium company, SME, or a MNC. I hope that answers pretty much.
Interesting. It does, right? So it in fact brings in a very interesting point, right? And I'm going to come to that on the size and scale of organization, right? That is adopting a solution in just a bit. Now, one thing that I want to understand more about the product, right? Is that largely two things, right? Now, a lot of these events that are happening, right? Especially when you talk about flash floods, when you talk about containment zones, right? A lot of these are very dynamic conditions. That's number one, right? Number two is that availability of information which is around these events and such aberrations, right? Is very qualitative in nature. You don't necessarily have access to ground zero. You don't necessarily know the impact that it's caused, the havoc that it's caused, right? And the disruption that's going to happen. So, is the model here that you built, right? Is this largely it gives you an understanding of what possibly could go wrong, or is this very absolute in nature, saying that this is the infrastructure or this is the human resource that stands at risk because of an event that has happened, right? And what kind of a lag is there, when you're putting it out, right? Is this, how quick is the response for, say, assuming I am a business owner, for me to react to a situation like this? Would love to understand that.
So you've answered two questions to me. Number one, is it predictive in nature, or is it very, very factual in terms of what is happening? And you just informed this part. So
and how are you synthesizing qualitative data into a quantitative form and an actionable insight?
Correct. So essentially, just try to look at this. One, what we have built is a machine learning based system. It's an AI and machine learning based system.
Right.
So that means the model becomes more and more accurate as we proceed further.
Sure.
And as we proceed more and more further, it will become more predictive in nature as well.
Sure.
Because as model learns, as more and more events pour into this, as we spend time in the market, it will become more and more accurate by the day, because it's based on AI and ML. And that's where you build a market entry barrier for yourself. You're creating a product which will eventually become the product which will start predicting stuff for you, that hey, there is a possibility of a riot here, or there is a possibility of a flash flood here, or etc. etc. Now coming to what we do right now, we provide you right information at the right time. And what is the lag between getting that information? It depends upon, we scrap through thousands of media portals, we scrap through thousands of internet places and the blogs, etc., where we try to fetch the safety information. And on the basis of that information, and on the basis of obviously multiple APIs, weather APIs, your meteorological department APIs, on the basis of which we are able to predict few things, we are able to say a few things directly and get a lot of data directly from there, right? And we tell you that this is what is happening, and this is causing so much % of risk to your infra, so much % of your revenue might get impacted, and obviously so many human resources are getting impacted. And then it depends upon how deep we have information about the organization. So for example, somebody sitting in Mumbai is probably from Andhra, and his parents are in Andhra, his extended family is in Andhra, and there is a cyclone in Andhra. Does it impact the organization directly? Answer is no. Does it impact the organization indirectly? Yes. All the people who are from Andhra and who are living on the coastal side of the region, there will be a cyclone, their extended family is getting impacted. Company needs to be worried about it, right? Because these people will not be able to focus on their work 100%. I'm giving some of the examples here to tell you that this is what we do. Now, one critical thing, Ashu, here is, today the media reports have a major lag that they don't have geo-intelligence. So what they do is they bombard you with a whole lot of information. They endlessly bombard you with information. Right? And hence what happens is you're not able to find out what is relevant to me in a way. You see a murder happening everywhere and a riot happening, this and that. Does it matter you? Does it matter to you? So what happens is even a regular thing becomes trivialized because there is no geo-intelligence by media. What we do is we add geo-intelligence to all of these incidents, and we exactly tell you what is the level of impact that it can make to your infra, to your revenue, to your humans, who all are in trouble, etc. Moreover, there is a very good use case wherein companies take up to 9 hours to reach out to their employees. Just to get to know if they're safe or not, because they're using phone calls. And this is one of the largest mining company in the world, and they want to implement this across the board, where they're saying, just by a click of a button, can I broadcast in a CUG network and ask my employees, hey guys, are you safe, etc. There are many products available, but not integrated to this extent. It can tell you revenue, infra, etc. Moreover, nobody is giving you the granular information. Nobody is bringing it to in such a way. Correct. Yeah.
No, interesting. I think Dhiraj, I get it drift, right? I think the systems will go on to become more intelligent. I think the sources are right now kind of becoming intelligent, as we kind of talk, right? And you're absolutely right when you're saying, right? I think it has to get to the point of decision making, right? I think a broader assessment of how it impacts, right? I think is a great starting point, right? Is this perfect? The answer could be yes and no in many ways, but I think that's how the relationships evolve in the process, right? I think no really a product kind of existed which is so dynamic and very active in many ways, right? And I think that's your differentiator in the process. Now, I want to understand, right? What is the larger market that you are targeting? You mentioned about it, right? You said that from the face of it, and when you talk about the facets, and the possibilities and combinations that you offer as a product. It seems to be a product which is more relevant for a larger enterprise, right? Smaller enterprise typically have very defined SMEs, MSMEs, right? Which is largely a backbone, right? Have a very defined sort of a task, right? A lot of these guys are feeder to larger enterprises. They're not necessarily as thickly spread. Does that means that your priority or the larger market for you is going to be larger enterprises? Do SMEs also qualify for a product like this? Like I said, their requirement might just be so much more limited in many ways because they're typically concentrated in one or two areas, and the outcome is very predictable. I'd love to hear from you on that one.
Very, very good questions, actually. So on the contrary, by looking at our pitch on Tyke, one of the SME called me, which is into an automobile industry, and they said, we want this product for ourselves.
Sure.
Because, you know, I'll tell you why is it so damn interesting. Because we believe that large organization is spread out.
Right.
What we don't understand is that the world is so connected today. You know, so SME is definitely selling to somebody who's larger.
Sure.
Right. So if there is a company like Metalman, by the way, was one of our first POC client, and Nishant Jairat is a great guy. He's an ED there and very progressive person, young guy, digital leader. And he said he implemented this particular solution, and he told us that Metalman, during the pandemic, when they implemented this kind of a solution, you know, their importance was, hey, is Bajaj doing fine?
Sure.
They're vendors to Bajaj. If Bajaj is not doing fine, then I'll not be doing fine because I'm their vendor. So this automobile company which just came to us for the Tyke, you know, they also had a similar kind of questions, and they found so much utility in this. So I think world is so damn connected that, you know, SMEs are going to be a real market. Who are going to use this, and it is going to benefit them in a big way.
Interesting. Yes, there are a bunch of very interesting questions that are coming up, right? We have a very sharp audience, right? I think, ladies and gentlemen, we just wait for a bit, and we're going to bring in all of these questions in perspective, right? I think you will have your chance to question as much. I think the idea is to bring in as much perspective as possible. Dhiraj, next question. In an organization, right? In a larger organization, it's very clear. Typically, where the CIO or the chief risk officer, right? It goes on to sit with them, right? And of course, there's a decision making, right? Which is there in smaller organizations, which is also, kind of, as you're highlighting, that it's a target market for you. Where does the decision making happen, right? My understanding is that a lot of SMEs, MSMEs, while there is this huge excitement and everybody in the B2B space wants to go on to cater to a B2B audience, adoption is something which is very, very slow, right? Because there's a sense of denial. There's a sense of deferment, right? You don't want to put up cost centers. While this is not necessarily a cost center, but that is largely there. I would love to understand, how are those challenges, how are adoption challenges for you across large enterprises? Because I believe that because of the stakeholders that are there, it becomes a little bureaucratic. For the smaller organizations, it's just like I said, right? Deferment and denial, because they consider possibly this to be a cost center. What's your thought on that? Would love to hear that.
Whenever you launch a product and whenever tech startups, the way they work, there is always a user interviews. Before you create an MVP, you go out to users and you ask these questions. You have a huge set of user interviews that you do, and we have done enough of our research on this. And believe me, we have not heard no from anybody. Even from our customers, wherever we have pitched this particular product, we've not heard a no. Yes, price point can vary. And we already believe this. This is part of our model. This is part of our pitch as well. We are talking about a price point, a smaller price point for a small enterprise, a little higher for a medium enterprise, and for an MNC and largely distributed organization, it's a different price point. So we have not heard a no from anybody as such, and it's a great product market fit, I would say. So it's relevant for everybody. So I think all markets would take it, definitely.
Interesting. But what's your anticipation, right? What kind of turnaround times are you looking at, right? Because like I said, this is a time-taking process, right? What are your thoughts on that? That's number one. Number two, I'd love you to break it down at a cost level, right? And I think that'll help us understand adoption, and mindset issues there a little bit more. If you could just spell out, from a business model standpoint, the revenue that, the revenue, thought process that you have.
So like you said, large organizations. So it's a different sales cycle for a large organization. For a smaller organization, it's a different sales cycle. It's a plug and play solution where we sit and we take inputs from you and we feed those inputs into our solution, and we start focusing on locations which are of interest to you. It could be your suppliers, your vendors, your own locations, your distributors, etc., your employee locations and your offices. So it's pretty much a plug and play solution. We take inputs from you and we onboard you. And so in SMEs, it's straight away the CXOs. The apex of the organization is a decision body, particularly EDs, and everybody's so progressive these days. The new generation which is coming up of all these family offices and the entrepreneurs. I think the new generation which is coming up wants to digitize every damn thing out there, right? So hence they're very much interested in this, and they all want to start off with this. So number one. Number two, when it comes to larger organization, yes, there is a sales cycle involved, because larger organizations go and do a complete infosec, information security checks, etc. So the entire product is then sent to infosec, which checks you for information security. Fortunately for us, we work with large insurance companies like HDFC Ergo and Max Life Insurance. So these companies and particularly insurance, banking and finance, BFSI companies, they do so much exhaustive testing of a system that it becomes that it is by default you are super secure, right? Because of IRDA norms and RBI norms, etc. So I think our system is super secure on that format, and we have that way we have crashed a lot of time from the infosec perspective as well. But yes, large companies do take time of around 1 to 1.5 months before they actually start onboarding and users start coming onto your platform. But smaller organizations, it's more of a plug and play. It should not take more than 15 days to close any particular cycle.
Super. Dhiraj, I'd love to very quickly understand, what are some of the activities that you're doing to onboard these customers, right? B2B sales cycles, like we have been, right? Have their own eccentricities, right? And India being a large market, there are a lot of regional aspects that also sort of come in and into play, right? But what are some of the things that you're doing to ensure that you're a category leader in many ways, right? I mean, there is much very different kind of systems that kind of exist, right? Risk is measured in a very, very different way, right? You're kind of building a very dynamic sort of a system, right? Would love to understand what are some of the activities that you are undertaking, because land grab becomes very important. I think going out and sitting inside the system becomes just so much more important, right? What are some of the activities that you're doing on that front?
Yeah, so see, our team is quite an experienced team. I have around 18 years of experience, almost 19 now. July will be 19. Have spent around 10 years in enterprise sales, in product marketing strategy with Tata's. We have Varun, who has spent 10 years with enterprise sales. So we understand the enterprise side very, very well. And I've also created an earlier startup which was into real estate CRM. So we understand the enterprise, very, very well, actually. So very clearly, it's a B2B strategy. It's a proper sales cycle, sales process, C0, C1, C2, C3, etc. Proper CRM implementation using Salesforce or any other CRM, and you constantly monitor all your leads and you close all the leads. So if you look at the flow out there, there's a cold customer. You have to take him to a demo. Once the demo is done, then you take him to closing the financials. So it's a very, very clear sales cycle out there. Now, as far as route to market is concerned, I think the route to market is more when you since it's a CXO level selling. So it will require white paper, number one. It will require a whole lot of case studies and how you are adding value to each industry. Best part with us is we are right now working with multiple industries. There's a mining industry, there's a banking, finance, insurance industry. Then there is we are getting to understand so many industries out there, right? One after the other, and that's what. So that means essentially you need a category manager to manage each of these verticals, not just from the sales perspective, but also from the operations perspective. Because if you understand particular category very, very well, you will be able to alert them with the right sort of stuff. For example, the entire automobile industry says that, hey, if there is a fluctuation on steel price by more than 2%, that's a risk for me. Can you intimate me about that? And it's such a very industry specific stuff, right? So
that's but in a market like India, right? I mean, which is so diverse, so complex, right? And my sense is, right, across this conversation is that you're India first in many ways, right? Now, what I want to understand is that which is the sector that you want to go after that could possibly be, because I think that super specialization of sorts becomes just so much more important, right? And I think even from an investor standpoint, it gives you a very definitive visibility, right? In terms of, how you're trying to sort of do that, right? And I think the system does not necessarily have to go through multiple, layers of changes. My sense is you don't necessarily have to do a lot of that. I think this is one sort of suit which fits all, right? Possibly you have to change some nodes in the process. But I think super specialization helps, right? So any particular sector that you are you think or you experience that where the adoption is faster, and that is the one you see that there's going to be a substantial lead that you'll build as you go along.
So traditionally, as you move more in the product life cycle, soon you will discover that there is a lever which is giving you higher returns, and there is a lever which is dragging you down. I don't think we are at that stage right now. But eventually we'll learn and we'll know which segments to go after and which segments to. So right now, I think we're happy taking business from an IT firm, from an FMCG firm, from an automobile firm. We're getting it from everywhere, and that's the advantage that a startup has. You're more lean, and you're more flexible. You get to learn better. You learn faster, and you move forward. So I think that's the stage at which we are. But we will definitely, I think, over a period of time, there'll be a lot of evolution in.
Lovely. Dhiraj, towards the end of the conversation, would love to understand what are some of the marquee customers. Of course, you mentioned them on your slides that are available on Tyke, but would love to capture it here. Which are some of the marquee customers that you're working with? Would love to understand the size and scale and your integration with them.
Sure. So since this product is in continuation with what we did during pandemic. Sure. And how we were giving an enterprise solution for COVID riskmatic platform. We were doing contact tracing and who to quarantine and what. Sure. And then we moved into some of the hardware based solutions as well, right, and emergency solutions as well. So this is in continuation with that. So whole lot of what we've seen is whole lot of customers who are using our COVID riskmatic are now wanting the complete riskmatic platform, which is post pandemic as well. And we are able to convert 100% of those customers. So we're working with some of the large companies like, HDFC Ergo, I mentioned 10,000 employees today across 203 branches are using one of our product as part of Riskmatic. Max Life Insurance is second one, which is using. Adobe is one of our largest client for some of the emergency safety and emergency products. And they are obviously converting into, the larger Riskmatic platform. So lot of these clients are right now working with us and are converting, and we have worked with Tata Medical. We have worked with Metalman. Metalman is definitely one of our clients who keeps working with us constantly. So I think we're adding clients. We're adding a client every 10 days, 10 to 15 days. And this space is going to increase a lot. You will see maybe 20, 30, 40 clients getting added in a month.
Interesting. There's a bunch of interesting questions, right? So I'm not going to stand in between you and the questions, right, that the audience is asking. My last question in this conversation, what are the next 2.5 years like, right? What are your plans there on that front? I'd love to understand, what are the improvements that are happening on the product side of it? And what are the business milestones that you've set for yourself, for your team in the next 2.5 years? It's a long one. It's a long one, but I think it's important to understand.
Definitely. So there's a complete product roadmap which tells you which way we are going. So so in 2020 we did emergency safety and SOS. In 2021 we came out with an enterprise riskmatic platform for pandemic. In 2022 we launched our Insights Cloud, safety data and emergency services for the entire for the whole lot of enterprise vertical. And now that whole lot of data that is coming to us, this data is going to be very, very important. So we are going to integrate with some of the very big platforms on the travel side. So somebody like in Amex, somebody like in Galileo, a lot of companies use these kind of platforms today to book their travel. So whenever you're booking a hotel, whenever you're booking a room, whenever you're trying to book a flight, you should know what's happening in that city on that particular day. None of the booking portals will give you this data because they want to sell tickets. We will, because we want to keep you safe. Right,
and you'll be at the back end possibly.
Correct. Then comes the business continuity planning. As I said, data is very, very important. This data is going to be utilized by a lot of larger companies in insurance, in travel blogs like Lonely Planet, TripAdvisor, and real estate portals. So I think this data is going to be super interesting for everybody.
Super. Dhiraj, a phenomenal conversation, a spectacular conversation. Personally, I've had the opportunity of talking to a lot of founders, a lot of promoters, a lot of CXOs, right? And in this key decision-making space, and we did a lot of that through the course of COVID, right? And in fact, now even post-COVID, I think the risks that businesses have today are just so much more, right? I think COVID has just opened it up at one level, but I think it's exposed organizations. These risks continue to exist. Unfortunately, nobody was clearly talking about a lot of them. And now at least this is at the forefront, right, where the conversation is happening. And I think there is a need for a very continuous, specific system, right, which can help them understand all of this in one dashboard. And I clearly see a requirement and a demand there, as far as that is concerned. Early stages, but I think this is something, like I said, right, with the kind of experience that you have, the kind of team that you have, I think my sense is the impact that will get created in the process is going to be just so much more superior in many ways, right? So I at least, we wish you all the very best on that one. And with that, I'm going to open it up to a bunch of questions, right? There were a couple of questions that were coming in a Q&A. I'm going to put out some of these to you, and I'll let the floor open for our audience, right, to question you further. Yes, the first question that came, right, in the entire scheme of things, you've answered in no way, but I think I'd love you to highlight or re-emphasize on your thought process around this one. We have an audience who's asked that, so we can say that your main work is that of risk consulting and managing, right? I think what he's essentially trying to understand, are you a consulting company or are you a product first company with consulting as an added-on feature? Would love you to answer that one.
We are largely a product company. In order to implement our product, we also consult. So that means we understand your business better, so that we can give you a better solution. But yes, over a period of time, because we are building a SaaS platform, soon you will see that consulting will get reduced more and more, because we would know your business more than you, because we meet so many of those clients and we understand risk better than anybody else. So and particularly the physical safety and the physical events which are happening around you, we will understand them better than anybody else out there, and hence consulting bit will get reduced over a period of time, and it will be more like a plug and play SaaS-based platform.
Very interesting. And would that also mean that there's a certain level of handholding which is going to be required? Because when you talk of India, right, large enterprises apart, right, which have a very clear technology team, right? So CIO's role, for example, has become very important. CTO's role has become very important, right? SMEs, MSMEs that we spoke of, right, still need a lot of handholding, right? When it comes to very basic, elementary stuff, right? What kind of an impact do you see there, right? Do you think the handholding will still be required, or it'll just be systemically sharp enough that you can apply it in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and it's up and running, right? You just have to do some drag and drop, and then it comes together. The risks are very clearly identifiable. Sources you've already managed at the back end, right? What do you sense of that?
I think same was the fear when people used to say that hey, will there ever be a digital economy in rural India? And now we see a sabji wala having a Paytm out there, and use ice cream wala, golgappe wala, etc. So I think we're underestimating the people, particularly in SME, because I've worked with the ACMA and others which take care of SMEs and auto ancillaries, etc. I think they're all way ahead in terms of understanding technology. Number one. Number two, our system is purely plug and play. You will definitely have no issues. It's so user friendly that you will be able to, anybody can use it. However, we would definitely want to, in the initial days, obviously there are teething issues, and people would want to understand whenever there is an alert, you have to take that seriously, right? System is alerting, you have to take that seriously. So we would definitely be doing some hand holding in initial days, but I think overall it should fly smooth.
Interesting. Dhiraj, another very important question, and I think it becomes important that okay. So this question is, and I'm gonna put a little bit of a nuance to it, right? The question is that information availability seems to be a USP, right? Isn't that already available through multiple online channels, right? Because we have Twitters of the world, we have Facebooks of the world, and you have Instagrams of the world, right? So because of the social ecosystem that has come together, information flows faster, right? There are publishers, they put it out, people spread the word. There's just virality to it, right? What becomes your USP in the process?
Yeah, so great question there. So number one, you answered it yourself. It's so scattered. It's so scattered. It's so scattered that you're running your business at a CXO level. You don't have time to go to Twitter every now and then. You are into so many meetings back to back into calls. You don't have time to run into every information on multiple channels. I think what you're getting is a completely integrated channel, number one. Number two, you're getting a geo intelligence with that particular information. Number three, you're getting the information which is available on vernacular platforms also as we move forward. We are so that's one of our USPs as we compare it to us to many of the competitors which are existing in the Western world. They are very much North America and Europe focused, and their thought process and works in that format. Whereas India has got its own nuances. A small political rally can spiral into a big problem, depending upon where that rally is. So
Right.
lot of stuff that's happened, and that's
And I think
that's where we come in. Yeah.
And I think more importantly, you need an actionable insight, right? And I think that's I mean, you can aggregate information, but I think how do you synthesize the information as an actionable insight? I think that just becomes so much more important, and that's essentially what we're doing.
And also the
process.
workflow that we have created inside the platform. So whenever there is a risk, it will show you a 90% risk at your human level or revenue level, 50% risk at revenue level, etc. You allot that particular, you can give that risk immediately to somebody in your company and ask him to do something about it. And once he processes and mitigates that risk, your risk is again down to 10% or 5%, etc. So you're seeing a real gamified, actionable insight platform out there for you.
Interesting. Dhiraj, I am continuing to believe in what you are doing, right? All the more as we interact, because these are challenges that are, as a business owner, I think you continue to face these challenges day in, day out, right? Moving on to the next question. Okay, so we have somebody who's asking, who's your major competition in this, right? Domestically and globally. I think it'll be lovely if you could highlight that.
None in the developing nations. And that's why we always mention that we are targeting developing nations here. 152 countries by International Monetary Fund. They say 152 countries are developing nations. I'm talking about South Africa, Brazil, India, etc., etc. Bangladesh, Pakistan, everybody for that matter. 152 of them. Now, in the Western world, there is Anvil Group. There is Crisis 24. Crisis 24 has acquired worldaware.com, which was doing $81 million in terms of revenue. Am I audible there, Ashu? Am I audible there? Anybody there?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I'm back.
Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, you are. Dhiraj,
sure.
Second last question that I got.
Sorry, I didn't answer that.
Please go ahead. Sorry, my bad. Please go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So I was saying there are companies in the Western world which have similar products, but they work in silos. Somebody's giving only the notification bit, mass notification. Somebody's only working on the crisis and the end security. Somebody is working only on the risk side. I think what we are giving you is a complete solution, a holistic solution out here, which is the need of the hour. Number one. Number two, they're all building it on English media, etc. We are going vernacular. We will be scrapping Bengali news, Telugu news, Tamil news. We'll be adding, our systems will be intelligent enough to add geointelligence to it. So, what we are presenting to you is a complete deep tech for developing nations. So that's where our differentiator comes into play.
Very interesting. And I think more importantly, Dhiraj, and a quick point, right? A lot of consulting companies continue to offer a similar service, right? How do you see that? The big fours have a practice in risk management. I think a lot of others, right? So I've had the chance of looking at businesses which have, asset integrity, for example, is a big play, right? Also for technology companies. So you have the Infosys of the world, which have, a specialized vertical, which is largely on that, right? Oil and gas continues to be one of the sectors which is the fastest moving, right, when it comes to adoption of this, because the asset at stake is just so much more larger, right? And it's exposed to, all kinds of vagaries, right? You have seasonality issues, you have, warlike issues, essentially what we're seeing in Ukraine and Russia, right? Similar stuff. How do you consider that as, how are you using that as a, how do you view that as competition?
Yeah, so so I think traditionally risk management has been seen in a very different way. So we are bringing a whole lot of information intensity here. That's a big differentiator. Number two, we are bringing vernacular in it. That's again a huge differentiator than what all these big fours and everybody is doing. Number three, we are adding an emergency command center to it, which is a solution to the problem. We're not telling you just that problem is there. We're also bringing a solution to it. We have run a 24/7 command center for these for most of our clients. Number three. Number four, we also have, and there's a mention of that by Akhil Bansal there. A lot of people are misusing the app to earn free money.
Yes.
So we also have a consumer app where we reward citizens and people to give us when they give us a safety data. And if it's a pertinent data, we take that particular information and so it's nobody in the world would do this. Your big fours are not going to create a consumer app where they're rewarding people and gamifying it to get the safety data, right?
Interesting.
So that also answers your point in terms of what is a big differentiator. Everybody's depending just on internet. Today we get 95% of our data from the internet and 5% from our consumer app. we believe that consumer app is going to be very, very powerful sooner. And it is going to be the real market entry barrier for anybody else to enter this market, because you get so much data coming from the users directly. Just imagine one of the users shot a live video of a phone snatching, and that phone snatching will never get reported to police. Your big force will never get to know of it. National Crime Record Bureau is not going to record it. But we know where is this happening, which lat long did it happen.
Interesting.
So we are going to build a whole lot of data coming from the user as well.
Interesting. I think Dhiraj, I think it will only be fair. Some very interesting questions coming in, right? I think it will be only fair if we let people come in and ask those questions, right? Sri, if you could open it up for people to ask questions, that'll be nice.
Yep, I think Kiran raised his hand. Let's let Kiran speak.
I think we have a bunch of people who've been writing a lot of questions, right? Why don't we open it for them?
Am I audible? This is Kiran.
Yes, Kiran, you're audible. Please. Hi.
A product, Dhiraj. That's an amazing product. I understand, from your earlier mention that the competitors quote exorbitant.
Okay, to me, he is not.
Your voice is really low. Could you please speak a little louder? Get your microphone closer to your mouth.
Is it better now?
Much better.
Much better.
Okay, great. Dhiraj, great product, and I understand from your earlier mention that the competitors quote exorbitant price for the same product, and a Lighthouse is at the mid or other end of the spectrum, right? And now my first question is, in the entire stack of components, in the tech components, do you have a magic potion that you have patented, or if it's in progress, how are you building a moat around what you have developed today? What is that one component that you think the other MSCs are cannot replicate the same? So that's.
I think it'll be nice if you could introduce yourself.
Sorry, Ashu, can you come again?
I'm saying it'd be nice if you could introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Kiran. I head sales and business development for Eagle Eye Networks. Uncanny Vision. We recently got acquired by this Austin-based company called Eagle Eye Networks. I handle AI analytics, product of portfolio of AI solutions for Uncanny Vision.
Super.
For APAC region.
Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Ashu. Same.
Thanks, Kiran. Thanks for asking this question. So, sorry, can you just repeat your question once more? I just lost it somewhere.
No problem. So I was asking, if Lighthouse in the entire stack of
what's the moat? What's the moat?
What's the moat? Right? Exactly. And if you have any tech component that is patented, or if it's in progress.
There is a lot which is patentable. Not patented yet, but patentable.
Okay.
I think within 3 to 6 months, we will be going in for a patent.
Okay.
Because, we are waiting to make it more deeper, because as we get more and more customers, we will have more information, and we will know what all to take it to AI. So definitely there's a lot which is patentable, and we'll go for the patents very, very soon. As far as moat is concerned, one is definitely the deep technology. Second, the vernacular. Third is the user generated content. I think the user generated content itself is a very, very big market entry barrier for anybody else to come in and do it, because it requires a lot of time to acquire these customers. And obviously most of the SaaS companies are enterprise focused. So, but we have a very clear vision that in terms of customers, paying customers, and the users of the data are going to be the SaaS based, the enterprise customers. However, the data will come from multiple channels, and that's where you build the moat. I always believe in scaling the vendor side first, because if you don't have an iPhone on Amazon, users for iPhone won't come. So if I don't have news for my enterprises, so that's where my larger focus is.
And I think Kiran, just to sort of add to Dhiraj, I think something that he mentioned in the course of the conversation, right? I think it's about the smartness with which you build that aggregation, right? And how you synthesize that information, right? I think eventually it's that. your ability to continue to assess risk, right? And I think the consumer phase that he's talking about, and I think somebody mentioned that, there's a lot of people who are writing all sorts of things, to earn those points. The fact of the matter is that, as these sources mature, right, I think they'll be able to rank and read that entire process. The intelligence is going to look very, very different, which is going to put that entire, organizational risk, they'll be able to define it in a very different way, right? So I think these are early phases, but I think this becomes much stronger as they go along. And like I said, right, a lot of this, and Dhiraj also highlighted, a lot of this information exists in a fragmented format. So say, for example, even if you're doing something with, say, Eagle Eye, right? Now, you're possibly only assessing a risk at a certain level, right? And it's a silo-based risk, right? I think what he's doing is he's basically helping you break those silos and identify all of those risks and synthesize them at a top level, right? That's, I think, a very clear, strong differentiator in the process. And I think the team's experience, right? Here, I think for some reason is not highlighted as much. I think a lot of that experience becomes very handy in the process.
Correct.
Understood.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks, Dhiraj. Thanks, Ashu.
Thanks, Dhiraj.
Awesome. Any other questions? Okay, till somebody comes up.
I think there is a question.
Yes. Hello.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. So, hi, Dhiraj. Awesome product. I'm really interested in this product since the date has been listed. So just one question. So just don't take me in a wrong way, but why had you raising money through Tyke and not through some big investor or a private equity firm or something like that?
Right, Akhil. So very good question. So one, I'll tell you, Tyke has got a immense advantage in terms of one, it's not an equity investment. It's a CSOP investment. Now CSOP brings customers. You won't believe, just by listing it on Tyke platform, I've got at least 3 to 4 customers which have come to us on their own and they said, hey, we want this. And so what I'm trying to tell you is it's so much of visibility which comes through, and especially when people are involved with their money, your mind goes where your money goes. This is a fact.
Yes.
And that's why people donate because if they donate, their mind will go to God. So here we are talking about a product, and when people get involved in the form of a CSOP, they definitely want to use it. They want to check it out. I think we are here particularly because we'll get so many customers here and so much of visibility which will bring in.
I think this is inside sales.
It's already easy for us to go to a I already have a signed term sheet of $500,000, but I particularly came on Tyke because I think this is where you get customers.
And this is inside sales, right? In many ways.
Yeah.
Where do you get advocacy, right? It's within the organization and decision makers, right? I think this becomes that, right? No, but I think also just to answer your question, right? I think, I think CSOPs never existed, right? I think Tyke has been able to sort of bring that as an instrument, and I think as a promoter and a founder, if you can continue to preserve your equity and get to a substantially relevant point, right? By bringing in these influencers, right? And stakeholders, and you make them stakeholders in the process. I think that's just so powerful as a play, right? And I'm sure every single founder is going to want to appreciate this. I think there's a different, there's a very, very definitive and a very clear bond that you establish, right? I think that's essentially what you need. I mean, imagine 1,000 people going on and representing you across multiple forums. I think your job is sorted, right? I think your sales becomes easy. I think that's essentially what Dhiraj is also highlighting.
Correct. And the ticket size, anybody can come and become part of this at 5,000 rupees without sitting on my cap table. That's the best part. So you have so many people, like he said, who are advocating about you, who are your voice today.
Okay.
Akhil, I also saw another question coming in from you.
That was regarding you already addressed that.
Yeah. So app is
misuse.
Yeah. It's a B2C site, so we're not focused.
Just
a data extraction platform.
Because on YouTube I saw like there are so many people who have put out some videos on how to earn free money.
Yeah, they cannot. It's so anything which grows very quickly big, a lot of people come and try and hack it. So that's what happened to us. You will see 50 videos where people wanted to hack into the system and hack into the data and get generate a dummy data just to get rewards, etc.
Correct. Yeah.
Our system is super secure. Thanks to Prateek.
So I just wanted to know that whether like the data. So you just said that 95%. So that's pretty good then.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people might just enter some broad
No, there's
incorrect
a whole
data.
lot of, there's a complete moderation platform, and there's a
Mhm.
moderating team which is constantly looking at the data, and these moderators. So, you know, in a way, Ashu, we are going to create a new set of employment here.
Right.
You would have never heard of a safety analyst. You will see army of safety analysts sitting in our company in coming days.
That's very interesting.
You know,
That's very interesting.
And these guys will be from journalism background, who were ideally eyeing to become a, you know, a journalist somewhere and be on this. And now these guys will be sitting in a black command center where they're constantly looking at the data and, you know, trying to understand, hey, this is safety or this is not safety news.
Super. Dhiraj, I'm sure there are a bunch of other people. You know, a very interesting question came in, and I would love to sort of you know, ask that to you. How do you measure utility of the product? Essentially, what the person here is asking is, how do you measure impact? You know, so when you are to say go back to the organization, right, and go back to the management, saying that, you know, this is essentially what we've done, right? And I'm sure you will have to do a lot of that in the process. You know, how do you measure the impact that you're creating for the organization?
Engagement, number one, how engaging your product is, because anything which people are not even opening your dashboard, or if they're not opening your mobile app, that means it's not usable. You know, people will not love it. So that has been our primary focus, and that has also been a great learning that we've had over the last 3 years, and which was very, very pertinent. So before getting into this, we did our own market research, and we found out why all the government apps, 112, Durga Shakti, Himmat Plus, why are all they in graveyard?
Right.
And one thing very clear which came out was they're in graveyard because they're only focused around SOS.
Right.
Anybody who's only focused on SOS happens only once or twice in a lifetime.
Right.
It does not happen to you every day. So any product that you will create only for SOS is bound to fail, because there'll be zero traction, right? That's why all these apps are in a graveyard. So our motto is very, very clear. We believe in engagement. We believe in increasing the information inside, because we know use cases which can add a lot of value to the enterprises without being in SOS immediately. Right?
And Dhiraj, are you also mapping the financial impact of such indicators and the signals that you're talking about?
Yes. And this is where the initial discussion with the companies and the you know, what's the revenue impact of any particular location on them, etc., comes into play, where we sit with the organization and we understand their philosophy, their work style, their work culture, and their spread across the geography in a deeper way, where we understand what is the revenue impact which can happen on them because of any particular location, right? That's where it stands.
Super. Dhiraj, one possibly the last question in this conversation, unless somebody wants to ask something. Somebody's asked, you know, what's the current valuation of Lighthouse? How?
I think it's already there on Tyke. So
why don't you spell it out?
Yeah. So we're looking at we are at 5.5 million in terms of valuation, USD. That means around 41 crores.
Interesting. I hope that answers it all. You know, I'm not going to dig further on that, right? I would, you know, I think this is, we're possibly going to bring it to an end unless there are any last questions that anybody has in the audience.
I think there's a question around how do you qualify the safety data? So as I said, there's a moderation platform, and using this moderation platform, we go about qualifying the safety data.
Super.
And then
I think you're
going to automate that. Yeah.
We'll automate already answered that one. I think already answered that one.
Nikunj has a question. Let's take.
Sorry, Sri, you're saying something.
Nikunj has a question. Let's take it. Hey, Nikunj, can speak now.
Sorry, which one?
Somebody has a question.
Nikunj has a question.
Nikunj has a question.
Hi.
Nikunj,
hello.
Hi.
Yeah, Dhiraj. Just one question. Like, how did you came up with the idea of developing such a kind of product?
Yeah. So, you know, it's been a journey. And, you know, it's always, you know, you always keep discovering the product market fit. You know, that's what founders usually keep doing. And once the product market fit is there, you understand the lever and you keep pushing that lever to grow more and more. So it's part of the journey. We've done so much stuff around safety that we understand every bit and piece of it. We launched our own app as a safety app originally, which was a predictive app. We came out with the safety indexes of the locations. We even put our guards on the road in Delhi NCR, where we said you press a SOS button and our Batman will come and save you. And then we also went about telling people that, hey, we know you guys are not in danger all the time, but do you have flat tires? We can change your tires even, because it's difficult to open nuts and bolts on your own. So our Batman will come and do it for you. So it's been quite a roller coaster journey for us. And then came pandemic, obviously. Pandemic was like and Vinay, who's one of our investors from Inflection Point Ventures, Vinay, he's the CEO there, founder and CEO. He mentioned, like in Mangalyaan, that Mission Mangal movie, the sudden solar wind gave a push to that particular satellite, and it covered so much distance. In the same way, I think pandemic came to us, and we got to so many enterprises because of that. And once we started understanding enterprises better, we realized that there is so much gap in the market on the information intensity side, which can impact their business. And then we started our own user interviews in this direction as well. And we realized that, hey, this is where the real gap is and the real problem is. And that's how we kind of tweaked constantly towards product market fit.
Okay, awesome. Sri, any more questions? Dhiraj, I have one, right? You mentioned of Vinay, right? What's the cap table right now currently? What's the equity between founders and what's the equity between investors? And if you could identify your investors.
I don't think I can discuss the cap table out here on this session. It's live on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, but broad level, founders have most of the equity in the company, and investors have sub.
And your investors are IPV plus or IPV only IPV?
There is Inflection Point Ventures and others as well. One of the investors from Inflection Point Ventures, angel investor, has invested a little bit more, and he's also a great partner with us. Gopinath Latpate. He's based out of Las Vegas, and I mean, he's almost like a co-founder to us. And while he wants to, he says he's a strategic investor for us, but I believe he's more like a co-founder, a team member who constantly keeps guiding us. He sold his last venture to JLL. So he has so much of wisdom around SaaS platforms and things. Yeah, that's where it stands.
With that, we bring this one to a close. Thank you so much for doing that. Sri, I hope we've covered all the questions in this session.
Yep. I think
awesome. Dhiraj, thank you so much for doing that. It was a pleasure to host you here. And to host all the the potential participants, right? Who've been so actively following you on Tyke. We wish you all the very best. There's some incredible work that you're doing, and my sense is I think the world is going to become a safer and a better place, right? With technologies like the one you're building. We wish you all the very best and have a great fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashu. Thanks. Such a pleasure meeting you and meeting everybody out here. Thanks everybody for your time. Thank you.